Good evening. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting of Committee of the Whole to order. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the agenda for the November 4th, 2013 regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Councillor Pat, I wonder, there's an item here, and I see we have some guests here. Can we change the order of the agenda, perhaps?
Yeah.
There is an item here that I think two representatives of the Bandshell Committee are here. And I wonder, Council, if we might move ahead item 5.6.1 earlier in the agenda so that we can deal with it, and then perhaps they'll want to, they can stay for the rest of the meeting, but they may not want to. So can we move that earlier, Council? Council Papp, you'll make that motion? That we let's deal with that first, right after, as
I couldn't agree more.
we get going, okay? So moved by Councillor Papp that we move item, what was that item again? 561,
Yep.
and deal with it first. Can I call the question on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Any other changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is, any conflicts of interest. Do members have any conflicts? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I am in conflict in item 521, extension of collection of white and bulky goods to multi-residential and mixed-use sites, in as much as I own one.
Okay.
And this is direct impact on my operations.
Okay, thank you very much. That's noted. Any other conflicts? Can that be so noted, please, in the minutes? Thank you. The first item, therefore, is item 561, Bandshell parking. And we have these out of order, Madam Clerk, so if you would be able to assist. Thank you very much. It has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Durley. The Committee of the Whole received the issue sheet regarding parking in the Fonthill Shopping Plaza, and that staff be directed to work together with the Bandshell Committee to develop a parking and emergency management plan for Bandshell events. Councillor Papp, I'm going to call on you to discuss this issue. You were part of this process, and maybe you can provide a little bit of background for members.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to my colleagues and the public, and welcome to the members of the Bandshell Committee. We had a meeting last week to discuss this issue that came up as a result of an inquiry from our friends here at the Fonthill Square shopping mall about the parking issue. And to say the least, we had a very productive meeting last week where we generally agreed that it's something that we're not going to talk about anymore. We're actually going to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And as a result, as the recommendation is noted, we're going to move together with staff collaboratively with the Bandshell Committee and perhaps some other representatives to work on not only a parking management situation, but also emergency management area. And there were a number of suggestions, and I think, Mr. Mayor, both you and I were very pleasantly, we were very pleased with the outcome, and
Absolutely.
Saw that, there's several partners involved in all of this, and just small examples of, increasing directional signage, considering things like drop-off zones, promotion, et cetera, that all of this be, as part of those issues, be discussed and resolved, and hopefully come back with a parking plan that would be part and parcel in concert, forgive the pun, in concert with the concert series, that be ready for February of 2014, and that they'd be so implemented as part of the Peace Park concert series. Generally, everybody agreed. There's ownership amongst all of us and responsibilities to move forward with this, and I encourage all of us to work very collectively and collaboratively with the groups involved. I think, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to get any more specifics. Right. I think that's something the staff can, and I've got a number of notes that I'll share with staff about what we discussed that day and also with the concert. I think I covered it.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think just the one other item is council will know this is something that we've been trying to deal with, and to deal with the problem of parking in the concerts. It's a great problem to have, first of all. that the bandshell concerts are fabulous, and certainly the work of volunteers is amazing to put those on. So thank you very much to the bandshell committee for that. But as we've tried to solve it, and I think this is an example as you read through the notes, we've been involving others, and there was recognition in the meeting that we had with representatives of the Fonthill Shopping Plaza that really it's an issue that's owned, and using that word owned, from the creative problem-solving process by the town and the bandshell committee. So we've met with the bandshell committee, and they're agreeable to moving forward. Others will be certainly involved in some ideas, but at the end of the day, it really is, it's the bandshell event, and it's on town land. So that's the great partnership that occurs. And so I think that's the revelation out of this discussion, was that we certainly do need to involve others, but at the bare minimum, the ownership is the bandshell committee and council and the town. So that would be the only additional piece of information. I wonder if any councillors have any questions or comments on this, Councillor Durley?
I think there's definitely a third player in there, in that, yes, the bandshell sits on town property and the bandshell committee does it. The fact of the people are parking on land that isn't owned by the town is the other issue, and that I think is the crux of this whole concern. So definitely, yes, we are two of the owners, but the business community which is involved in the shopping plaza certainly is a key player in this whole exercise as well.
Thank you. And I think the Councillor Papp, you want to address that? Or?
Sure, if you don't,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely correct, Councilor Durley. We did want to incorporate, in fact, invite representatives from the Fonthill Square, not only the merchants, but also, I could say, engage and inform the owner of the mall, because they are part and parcel of this. So we'll work through that as well with the staff report. You're right, quite right. Mm-hmm. It's a multiple type of approach. And there's also even suggestions of, there's other possible business owners, not just the mall, but others surrounding the area that we talked about that would need to be involved in how we take this approach, including the church as well. Yeah. Thank you, Councilor.
I think the other change is that some of the bandshell committee certainly has done a lot of this work, and the town is involved in it. This is sort of formalizing a little bit more. I see one of the members here who every week puts out the signs for accessible parking and things like that, and that probably needs to be formalized, in my opinion, and that's what this will allow us to do. So we look forward to that. It's a very positive step forward, I think. So any other questions, comments? So we look forward to the results, hopefully, for the next season.
Could you read the motion again, Mr.
It is different than what's being proposed.
Oh, okay.
Or what was proposed in the agenda. So, and it's more in keeping with the creative problem-solving process. Page 4, I guess, of the creative problem-solving process says, how might the town of Pelham and the bandshell committee develop a suitable traffic and parking plan? So this motion is more representative of that, and it is not only that we receive it, but that staff be directed to work together with the bandshell committee to develop a parking and emergency management plan for bandshell events. So it's a joint kind of ownership on it. Councillor, is there?
Who's taking the lead on that, Mr. Mayor? Because I think it will establish some precedent, and this is in all deference to the committee. Mm-hmm. But I think it will establish a precedent on how we deal with other events that are using municipal properties, and the restrictions and the requirements that we will expect of those various events. So is it the expectation of the town that the bandshell committee would become the lead on the issue, and that the town's resources would be there on a consultative basis? Would the bandshell committee prepare the parking and management plans and present them to the town for review? I'd just like to know a little bit more about the process, because I think it will establish steps and guidelines that we can utilize going forward with other events that are going to come to our community.
Mm-hmm. As I read the motion and as I read the work, there was recognition that it's joint ownership of the town and the bandshell committee, and so the motion is directed to work together with the bandshell committee. So it's a joint piece. This I think is the largest non-municipal event that's in the community. maybe it is getting special treatment as a result of that. But it is a working together with that recognition. So, Councillor Papp, do you want to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
I think ultimately, Councillor Kersey, you're right. The ultimate responsibility does lie with the municipality because it is our own land, if you want to get down to legalities of it. This is a step in which we're going to try and work in a very close fashion, if you want to call it, to come up with a solution to this particular issue. Now, they won't have the technical expertise to do this. We're going to be doing that ourselves. We're going to help them with that, and no different than any other event. You're quite right. If others come to us on municipal-owned property, we, as a municipality, have to take the responsibility of offering that. And this is a first step, I think, I think it's achievable, and then maybe it'll set the benchmark for dealing with others as well. And you're quite true. There's other events that are going to be occurring along that way, and we need to set that standard, and this is an opportunity to demonstrate that. If that's,
you.
okay?
Councillor?
Sorry, Counselor, I think I misled you because I was taking the opposite tack. I was saying that it's the event organizers that really are the lead and should take the lead. So if an outside organization comes to us and says, we want to use East Park
For
for
a certain event.
a sales event.
Right.
One of the expectations, or two of the expectations that we should have as council is that A, how are you going to handle the parking? And B, have you got an emergency plan? So they take the lead on that and presenting that. And one of the conditions of allowing us, of us giving the group that has approached us the right to use our property is that they have fulfilled at least those bare minimums. So it's unfortunate that the band shell is in the middle of this discussion, but maybe not. It's a very good, well-organized event that has had a great mark on our community, but it has precipitated, success has precipitated a couple of problems. One of the problems, the most imminent problem, is this parking issue. And so it seems to me that it's incumbent upon the band shell committee to have sourced out off-site parking, to present a proposal to use shuttle buses, all of those sorts of things that need to be considered in the discussions. And so I guess that's why I asked the question is, who are we going to have take the lead on this issue? I hear you that it's a joint effort, and I accept the fact that it's a joint effort, but at some point in time, somebody needs to take the lead and do some initial background things such as, okay, we have a parking problem in the core, so we're going to approach the Niagara South Board of Education to use Glen A Green, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
Do you want to speak to that, Councillor?
sure. They in fact have done some of those things, unbeknownst, and we've very pleasantly discovered that they have been doing some of that. Now the point is, I think, what you're getting at, I think we're on the same wavelength, is to build that protocol and prerequisite.
Right.
That no matter what group comes to us, that those things be built in. I think this is an excellent starting ground with them, and in fact, Councillor Kersey, they had done some of this, but some of it, whether we were aware or weren't aware with it, and they've worked with our staff in tandem to that, so now we're just going to, I'm going to say, specify it in a much more succinct way. And as well, I agree with you, set it up into a protocol that doesn't matter whether it's a concert group or somebody specialized event coming in, these are the kind of prerequisites we'll look for. So I think we need to keep, like I hate to say, move forward with it, and they have done a lot of work on their own.
Great.
And I think this is the time for us to sort of tie it together, and at the same time build that on a larger scale, the type of, how can I say, logistics that could be taken for other groups that come to us. Okay?
Yep, perfect.
Does that sound, that's where I
And
think,
Councillor,
Mr.
you
Mayor,
were
we were
pointing,
going with it.
yeah, and you were pointing to a map that they've produced for
Yeah.
parking that they hand out at
They've done
various
that.
sessions, et cetera. There was a discussion at the meeting about the possibility of shuttles, so that should be looked at, things like
There's all
that.
kinds
So,
of things.
so I hope that answers.
Yep, no,
Does that-
that's great.
Okay. Others? Good discussion. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to the results of this so that some of those issues can be dealt with in the 2014 season and leading up to the 10th anniversary in 2015. So thank you very much for your involvement in that, and we look forward to working with you on that. Now we go back into the order of the agenda, and the first is the monthly corporate services report. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the Committee of the Whole receive the September 2013 corporate service. Services report for information, the mayor and clerk be directed to call a special meeting of committee of the whole to receive public input on the development charges study on November 19th, 2013 at Fire Hall number 1. Madam Treasurer, that's a bit different than, well, first of all, it should be October.
No. Oh, October report, yes.
October 13th, October 2013. But the recommendation is quite a bit different than what's been proposed and approved by council. So can you tell us about that? I think it's highlighted on page, item number 12. Madam Treasurer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Development Charges Act requires that a public meeting be held for the development charges to be brought forward to the December meeting in council for possible adoption. So the public meeting was set up. It was identified as an open house, as I did not understand the difference between the two. And we have corrected it on the website. We are working with the administrative assistant to the CAO and mayor to send out a message to all of the developers to correct it with them as well, pending council's approval. Or we could otherwise hold a public open house before or an open house, official open house, prior to the public input meeting, to get input from the developers in a format that's completely open. Both ways would still allow us to provide a report back to council before the December meeting where we would adopt the development charges for 2014.
Okay, thank you. So I think what was approved by council was that there would be an open house. I recall Councillor Kersey speaking to it, Councillor Ribiak wanting to speak to it. And the discussion was, let's put it out to the community to find out what their thoughts were before we sort of consider it. So, and that was going to be on November 12th. Now there's a change of date, I guess, because of the consultant. So this is a bit of a change, council, in terms of, this would be the statutory public meeting is what I'm hearing you say. Okay, so I look forward to feedback from councilors on that. This would be calling the statutory public meeting on the 19th to hear specific feedback as opposed to an open house, getting just the information, the feedback, etc. So,
That's going to be.
who wants to, Councilor Ribiak?
Thank you. As the official public meeting, does that require us then to have a quorum of council present and it's an official meeting?
It would, I understand it would.
But the option, I guess, that we wanted was the other. And are we saying that that is out of the question?
Madam Treasurer?
No, it's not out of the question at all. We could pull together an open house prior to the November 19th meeting, and we could receive the information at the November 19th meeting. So it would be at council's discretion on how they wanted to proceed with this. We could delay the approval of the development charges background study in December to in January, and officially call this an open house on that night as well. So it's up to council on how they want to proceed with this.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I personally have issues with the date. The date is particularly onerous for me. I know that a quorum of council would be able to do an excellent job without me, but this is an issue that I have a particular oar to put in the pond on, and I would like to be in attendance, and I'm finding myself unable to do that. So I'm wondering whether some arrangement can be made with respect to that date and or that time that day in order to provide us perhaps an opportunity for all of us to attend.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Papp, Councilor Kersey?
I'm somewhat following. I would rather we do the informal public information session, followed by the formal public meeting, and then I'd rather delay it, Madam Treasurer, and make sure, because we've had, and you've been here a while enough to know, this just, we want to make sure that our developers and builders have an opportunity to comment on this, and I don't want to be seen as that we're right away going to a formal public meeting, and then unless there's some, how can I say, special reason we got to get it done. I mean, the drop dead time to get this done is by January, right? Is that fair to say, to get this new bylaw in place?
Madam Treasurer, what's the timing?
The timing is, the bylaw is 5 years old as January 1, 2014 rolls in, and you're required to review the bylaw and update it.
Before.
Didn't think so. Okay.
Okay,
I
so
can get that clarified.
if you don't mind clarifying that, so in that case, if worse comes to worse, we have the 19th as an informal information session, inviting all the different developers and whoever the affected parties are. And then following that, and it's up to you for scheduling purposes, that we have the official public meeting, maybe a week or 10 days after that, or 2 weeks, and I'll leave that up to your discretion. Then finally, the consideration of the bylaw would be the final meeting before we adjourn for the year. Does that sound fair? That gives, I'm just trying to, because we've been through this before, I think, and we've had some pretty interesting sessions, so I'd rather we put it out front forward to them, leave it as an informal public meeting, then consideration of the bylaw. That would be and you can work on the schedule to make sure that we're there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Councillor Kersey, are you of the same mind?
I'm of the same mind. I think an informal session would help us gather a bit more information. There are some significant changes
Yeah.
that have been proposed and put forward. It would be good to get some feedback
Yeah.
and perhaps have the consultant have a look at it, taking into consideration that feedback from the informal session, and then present something in a formal way. I think it just extends a leaf branch. It extends the opportunity of communication in a less formal
Yeah.
setting. So I think it's something we should be doing.
Okay. Any others? So are we of the same thoughts that we would do that? So really, my understanding is that we've already directed staff to do that, except it would be, we said on the 12th, so now this would be on the 19th, and it would be an open house as opposed to a special statutory
house.
public meeting, so that the mayor and clerk be directed. How would we change this?
To convene an open house.
So that, would it be staff,
So
so
you
that
would-
staff be directed to convene an open house to receive public input?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's being proposed is that we amend the recommendation here, that staff be directed to call
To convene.
to convene, be directed to convene a public open house on the development chart. What is it? Oh, say it again, you have it here.
To convene an open house on that date at the fire hall.
To receive public
to receive
input
public
on the
input.
development charges study on November 19th, 2013 at Fire Station Number 1.
Now, do you want to, excuse me, but did you want to also include in that a second component, that the clerk be directed to arrange for a public meeting
Yes.
of council?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
that way we can go through the normal
Yeah.
process of getting council's availabilities.
Yeah.
Okay, and that the clerk be directed to convene as
A public meeting.
public meeting. Yep. Okay? An official public meeting. Okay, so who's going to move that?
They all are.
Councillor Papp?
I will.
We don't need a seconder, but true. So to that amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. One quick question. You said that the bylaw, if it comes, not in effect, but it stops, the current bylaw stops effective this year. That doesn't mean necessarily that we have to, if there are any changes to the fees, they can be done at a later date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, because I think that's something that committee should consider and council should consider. We want to make sure if there's any changes, that there's enough notice for the building community so that they can talk to their customers, they can talk to, and put pricing in, et cetera. So maybe that's something that we can consider as it comes forward to us. Okay, are we ready for the amended motion? Oh, anything further to the, I'm not going to let you off that easy. Is there anything further to the treasurer's report? Councillor Papp?
Very quickly, first of all, I want to extend congratulations. I was reading in here that 2 staff members are attending this. If it's the leadership program I'm aware of, it's an incredible program. So my question is that would this is something that should be encouraged throughout the whole municipal departments. And as I realize that the corporate, so are these 2 staff members at a management level, or are they just? because it talks about the assistant succession planning, enhancing leadership potential is the whole idea, and that's what we want to do, is build bench strength, right? I hate to use that word, but and also secondly, I'd like to see this, I mean, if it is being offered to the other departments, that you should be encouraged to go and attend this, because this is quite different.
Treasurer?
There's two staff in my department, myself being one of them, and
Okay.
also someone that is non-management, but at a position that she's got complete autonomy. And we identified the CAO in discussion about who would attend the first round would be some directors and one of the other staff that was in the Human Resources Department because of the scope of this project and the professional development that's required for leaderships and with performance management coming. And that was to identify the mentors, because this course requires mentors. And given that next year we would send staff that we feel are just embracing the management level, and they would really benefit from this course. For what we've seen so far, it's got great aptitudes for leadership and what's required in a changing, evolving world that's constantly moving. So it's been a great, right now, and the clerk is our mentor as we attend this session round, and she's very diligent with that. Reminds us of when our homework is due and all those little things.
Hey, go on, Ann.
I'm always late.
I used to remind you of them.
So it's been a great program to date, but we plan on embracing everyone in the municipality that we can over
Good.
the next few years.
I would highly encourage that, considering we have a number of people within the organization that are at management levels that could benefit from this as some of you move on to other pastures and retire, then encourage them to attend this. So you answered my question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Others? Counselor Durley?
Not to that, Mr. Mayor,
That's
but
okay, go ahead.
to 2.8, the new town website. Staff is going to be launching it or going through it all to get familiar with it. Will there be an opportunity to do the same thing with us as council, just to get a good look at it at a later date after staff is familiar with it? I'm looking at that as a lead.
Sure. Yes, on Wednesday there'll be a soft lunch for staff, and it's just a link that we'll be providing to all the staff, and I'll make sure that Mike sends it around to all the councilors members as well so they can view it.
Okay, thank you. Others? Counselor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My questions were with regard to the training program as well, as Councillor Paps were. Just for our information, some quick information, I take it it's an 8-week part-time program, probably evenings?
No, it's a 8-week program that you go once a week, and it's the whole of the day that you spend there. It's at Brock at the Goodman School of Business. It's been designed specifically for municipalities and leadership within municipalities, and it's been designed locally by area municipalities and leaders that exist in the area. So it's an 8-week program with 2 bonus classes, as they call it. So we're upon completion at the end of this month for the first round of the town of Pelham employees that have attended.
Terrific. And I think I understand that this is being offered under the policy that provides that the town pays for the cost of this because the town is selecting the participants and sending them there.
That's correct.
That's right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the treasurer for her report? There being none, I call the question as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. Thank you very much for that, and we look forward to that feedback regarding the development charges. The next item is Public Works and Utilities, and it has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the issue sheet report, let me read it first, extension of collection of white and bulky goods to multi-residential and mixed-use sites be received.
You gotta go.
Councillor, so this is the item to which you have a conflict. That the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the region of Niagara be notified of the town's interest in extending the collection of bulky and white goods to multi-residential sites with more than 6 units and to mixed-use buildings with more than 1 residential unit. And what do we put in here? Right here, okay. Any discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Please call the counselor back. Thank you. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Durley. The Committee of the Whole received the October 2013 Public Works and Utilities Report for information. Questions, comments? Councillor Papp?
I, through you, Mr. Mayor, want to thank the director. This is how much attention I paid. I walk the dog every day. You put up, I understand, directional things on the speed bumps. And I have received nothing but positive remarks about that, and people are very pleased to be able to identify these bumps before they lose their transmission, so. Congratulations, thanks for doing that. I mean, it's worked. Just make sure my car is not one of them.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Were there signs that were going to go up with that as well?
Yes, signs are ordered.
There'll be signs as well, Councillor Papp, so make sure you don't walk your dog into the sign.
I probably will.
Okay, thank you. Any others to that? Any others to other items? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our director. Could you comment on the scope of the Fenwick revitalization? We keep hearing that the scope has been added to, and I'd just like a brief outline of what has been added to the scope of the project over and above what the original scope and vision was.
Mr. Mann?
I don't believe the scope has changed a lot. I think initially it was Canberra Road from Church Street to, I think it's house 777, which is just, I think it's the one door or two doors east of the library. The work also includes part of Maple Street from Canberra Road to the, I think the south side of the Model Railroad building, and a little bit of Welland Road. I think that's primarily it. Some work on the access to the parking lot on Maple Street off of Canberra Road. I think that's, the scope pretty much stayed the same from the very beginning.
So the increase in costs is basically not so much a function of the scope, but more a function of what? We found out the hydro is going to be more costly to do, or did we discover some sewer problems, water problems, soil problems that has added significantly to the costs?
Well, I think
Mano?
it's primarily just fine tuning the project. Initially, they worked on a kind of a general idea of what they plan to do there, and then it, I guess, balloons into something somewhat larger, which is storm sewer outlet, which I don't think they initially anticipated. They have looked at more surface works for, well, you need to have a storm sewer outlet because it's just simply a series of old pipes that have been stuck together. We've been very fortunate over the years not to have any flooding issues there, so this will put a storm sewer that's constructed to service the area, and then they expand that to deal with all the drainage area, which may extend beyond just the service where the road reconstruction is taking place. So it gets to be more involved.
So that in effect would be the expanded scope that.
That'd be my guess, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Others? Councillor Ribbiak?
On another item within
Sure,
the
go
report.
ahead.
This is with regard to drainage projects. I think in a previous discussion we've had in council, we talked about a clearing of drains, particularly the Swayze drain. We talked about the fact that the Swayze drain was going to be cleaned for its entire length, but the east branch was going to be cleaned no further north than Foss Road. I think if memory serves, the indication was that would be looked at. I see in the report that there's been no change to that. I wonder whether it has been looked at, and if so, what conclusion was arrived at for determining that the drain would not be cleared any further?
It's based upon the former drainage superintendent's recommendation. He provided the information related to that. He'd done the inspection, so that's what the basis on. We can walk the drain or contact the Township of Wainfleet to see where they are with the hiring of a superintendent to work for the town. But you know, that becomes more involved. You know, that was his recommendation originally.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder whether it might be possible for that drain to be walked prior to work being completed on it. I think that, with all respect to the previous drainage superintendent, perhaps another look at that drain might ascertain its current condition and determine whether, in fact, cleaning mightn't be worthwhile throughout its entire length.
Okay. Mr. Mantle?
We can do that, yes.
Okay. Colleagues around the table, are you comfortable with that direction?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I have one item, and that is the, that hasn't been talked about, and that is the arena. I was surprised to see that a rezoning is required. It was an emergency last meeting, and now we have to go through the rezoning process. So can we hear more about that, Mr. Mantle, or?
It was, I think, this has come up before, because I seem to recall we got this far once before with that project a number of years ago. And I think it was related to rezoning of the site. I think it's zoned right now as open space, so the rezoning will create whatever the appropriate zoning is for it, then that'll allow for a building permit to be issued for the trailer or whatever we decide to enhance the arena with.
Okay, I was just intrigued by that. I guess colleagues around the table, that it does appear that there's some time, and there is an interim solution that's been proposed here as outlined. So maybe that's something that we should think about as we move ahead, and that rezoning will come here. So just wanted to highlight that for colleagues around the table. Anything further on the Director of Public Works report? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Mantle, for your answers and for your work, and to your staff. Thank you. Next, we'll move to Community Planning and Development. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King, that Committee of the Whole receive the October 2013 Planning and Development Services Report for information. Questions, comments on that report? Interesting to see some of the changes in the building permits. Thanks again for that additional information there. Councillor Kersey, you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of information, it seems to me when we received the information about the ANSI and the final boundaries, there was a feeling around this table that we needed to develop policies and put them in place to protect the ANSI. And I just wonder, Madam Director, how we're progressing on that. Have we begun that process to develop those policies that would ensure the ANSI protection?
Ms. Tavasoli?
Thank you. The letter that we received from MNR with respect to that recommendation, region received the same with the recommendations that just to review the impact and also incorporate any policies to protect the ANC boundary. We are putting together a report with region with respect to the impact and also if there would be any policy required. And for the next council meeting, it would be presented to the council for your information as well.
Thank you, Madam Director.
Perfect.
Further?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further for the Director? Thank you. There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to that report coming to us. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King, that Committee of the Whole receive the issue sheet report, installation of a ground sign as per request at 145 Highway 20 East, which is the curves, the building that houses curves, and the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the request for the variance be supported. Discussion? Ready for, oh, Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question in terms of dealing with this, but also in terms of expediting and making our agendas efficient. Why could items such as this not be included in the consent agenda on council and go, instead of coming to committee, go directly to council, be part of the consent agenda as a report from staff requiring action? It would certainly facilitate our constituents moving ahead with their projects. And we've talked about this a number of times and haven't seemed to get to that point yet. So I wonder what we're missing here to get to that point.
Okay, thank you. I don't know who should answer that, whether it should be Madam Clerk. Everybody's pointing to you.
Sure, if council would prefer that, then we can, when we review the agenda information, we can certainly look at that to put it on the council consent agenda.
Do we need a staff direction for that to
I
happen?
don't think so. I think.
No? Perfect.
My
I'd like to see it happen.
I think it's a good point you raised, because normally these types of things would go to committee first, and then it goes to council. But if it's considered sort of a standard thing, then it probably should just go straight to council. So we'll consider that as we look at the agenda as well. We have a pre-meeting, so it's not just falling only on the clerk, it's falling on myself and the CAO. So we do have a pre-meeting in terms of items, and sometimes we move those things around. This one we missed, and so we'll certainly think harder about this in the future. Anything else? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried.
Same as this next one. Every year we do the same thing.
Yes. Moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Committee of the Whole received the issue sheet report sign variance to allow village artists to use sandwich board signs, and the Committee of the Whole recommended council approve the use of sandwich board signs for an art studio open house November 8th to 10th at the following locations. Those locations are outlined. I heard a comment from a colleague saying it's the same sort of situation.
Yeah.
Councillor Durley?
This is a recurring thing. They do this every year. So I thought when we did make a discussion previously that we were going to do a checklist sheet so that if they follow all of the things that staff could just allow this to happen. That would be the easiest way to facilitate it. And,
Yeah, and I think we've given direction to staff to come forward with a delegation of authority bylaw. I know the clerk has been very involved in that and other things as well, the procedure bylaw, et cetera. So, Madam Clerk, that's why I was going to ask you to just comment on that delegation of authority bylaw. This is a perfect example of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we have polled department heads to determine what types of matters could go on the delegation bylaw. The CAO is working on it right now, and we hope to bring that forward soon. It's something we have been working on.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Councillor. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. With the understanding this would be the type of thing that could be in that bylaw. Delegation of authority. The next is moved by Councillor Ribbiak. I'm sorry.
I just have a question pertaining to this. I know we've passed the motion, but I have a question of practicality. It says here that we are going to make a recommendation to council that they be allowed to do this, but the event is actually going to happen before our next council meeting. So
I saw that. As I read it, I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay, sorry.
But you're quite right, Councillor.
So, I mean, are we extending them the authority to proceed with that?
That's a good question. I think that authority, if all colleagues agree, that authority's been given, so forthwith. Okay? Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that points to the idea of it being a standard operating thing. You get the thing in, you do it, and approve it. The next item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that Committee of the Whole receive the issue summary report regarding the proposed bylaw for exotic pets, and that the draft bylaw to regulate or prohibit the keeping and running at large of animals other than dogs be received and referred to legal counsel for review and presented to council for consideration at a future meeting. Discussion. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you. I have a question. As I read through this, I noted that one of the exceptions, or the first exception, is that these provisions would not apply to pet stores. I guess my question is, why would we exempt a pet store from having stock that would be prohibited from sale within the same municipality? Somehow it doesn't make sense to me.
Chief?
Mr. Mayor, well, we don't have any pet stores. But,
Yes, we do.
The previous mayor had one, or still has.
They don't sell them.
Pet value, does that have,
yeah, it just started.
He's got cats and dogs in there.
so,
Anyways,
in general,
exotic.
Chief?
Yeah, so, yeah, valid point, I guess, when we came at this, we talked to other municipalities, and this kind of that wording came out of it's very common amongst all the other exotic pet bylaws, that they allowed the pet stores to have certain things. Oh, like I say, consideration, that's why we want things looked at by legal, and we can certainly remove it, so.
Okay. Do you want that expressly looked at by legal?
I would, Mr. Mayor, unless there's some specific reason why we would, in this municipality, expect that a pet store would have something that people can't buy, I would say there's no, that's a silly exception. So I would want it stricken from that bylaw.
Okay, so Chief, you'll look into that?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you. Others? Counselor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question. We have in a neighboring community an individual who runs a reptile zoo, if you like, and he participates, for example, in Summerfest, and is a great attraction in Summerfest. And part of that attraction is the interaction between what he brings and the crowds, and this man is very professional in what he does, but he probably would not be able to even come unless he kept everything in cages and in plastic and what have you, and it would restrict that interaction, and I wondered how that would impact on.
There's a provision in here that allows that for petting zoos and people coming in for special events.
Even though he would have things like constrictors
Well,
and.
yeah, but he doesn't have any, actually, Mike London is the gentleman that
that's
runs,
what
and he
he-
was a big part of this.
Was he?
advised
Oh,
a lot of
wonderful.
this, and he does not have anything that's prohibited on that list, like the certain constrictors, the anacondas, the certain snakes that are prohibited on here. He only has the animals that
Would comply.
meets the guidelines that he can come in and do it, so.
Chief, maybe since you're up, I know you've done considerable work on this. Can you just outline quickly the process that you went through and involvement? You mentioned one individual, there's other individuals that have been involved, just very briefly.
Yeah, we contacted a number of municipalities. We were in close contact with Greg Fruin, who has the big cats on Foss Road. He came in with his manager into our office, and he advised us on his particular instance. We talked to Michael London and another gentleman, another reptile dealer out of Toronto, that came in and met with us and advised us on wording. You know that St. Catharines has had some very difficult times with the limitations on, and we've changed the wording. We're not putting a limit on footage. We're actually limiting species that get that long. So because if you talk to the reptile people, it's very difficult to inspect, very difficult to handle these animals. You can't take a snake and straighten it out, you'll hurt it, type of thing. So we don't want to go down that road. So if you read the language that we have in here, we're permitting you to have certain exotic pets that don't have the potential to go past 3 meters. So there's a list of, I believe, 6 reptiles, snakes, that can go past 3 meters. They're not allowed, period. I don't care if they're a foot long. You can't have them because they have the potential to go past 3 meters. Same with lizards, or they're limited to the 2 meters type things, like whatever they are. So in Toronto, this has got a lot of Toronto stuff in it, because Toronto's been very successful with their exotic pet bylaw. They're it's generic in the sense, but it's also restrictive to the ones that have the nasty impositions. You know, there's some pretty crazy things out there, right? So, yeah, it's been an ongoing process, meeting with a lot of people, and we've talked to a lot of experts, and we've been listening, following St. Catharines Council and some of the headaches they've had with trying to get theirs through, and I think that we've I'm really confident that we've actually addressed a lot of the wording, the language.
Thank you for that, and we appreciate the holistic approach and working with others, and some of those that we are known exotic pet owners that are doing so for other reasons, like a magician or whatever, so thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? So we look forward to the feedback from legal on this, and I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. And now to the report. And it has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Committee of the Whole received the October 2013 Fire and Bylaw Services Report for information. Any items to that? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Chief. The next item is Recreation and Culture Wellness. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. The Committee of the Whole received the October 2013 Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Report for information. Questions, comments on any of those? We've covered a lot of this already, Christmas in Pelham, etc. You ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item we've dealt with already, which was the band shell. The next is the clerk's report. It's been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Durley. Committee of the Whole received the October 2013 Clerk's Department report for information. Discussion on any of those items? Madam Clerk, I had a question. This is regarding lottery licenses. I happened to be at an establishment this weekend. It was a church bazaar, and they had a penny raffle table, and they had to have 2 different penny raffle licenses because I understood it was something like the value of the one license was $500 and the other license was $500. Could you just give us a little bit of information about that, please?
Certainly, through Mr. Mayor, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario does limit for licenses for bazaars, and a bazaar would be an event where there is a main event selling such as baked goods or jams and that sort of thing, and in concert with the bazaar, groups are permitted to have a penny sale, raffle, or other types of raffles. However, they do limit the value of the prizes to $500. So we are trying to work with our groups so that we're not prohibiting them from raising money. There's no limit on the number of draws that they can have, so we just ask them to keep each of the penny sale draws to $500. So we've tried to help them find a way around that.
Thank you. Some of the folks were kind of beating up on the town and saying that it was our rules. It's not our rules. We're simply enforcing the provincial rules, I gather. And then the second point or question I have is, how long has it been that $500 level? Doesn't seem like a lot for a penny raffle.
That's right, and this has been an issue that has been brought by a number of clerks throughout Ontario when we go to training sessions on lottery events. You know, we have had concerns that the legislation is not being updated on a regular basis. Knowing that the mayor was going to bring this question, we did contact the AGCO this afternoon, and we have been told that it's been decades at $500. So.
Thank you very much. So what I'd suggest, colleagues, is maybe we can direct staff to, I know it's a small item, but I think it's important to some of our community groups, et cetera, that maybe we can ask the clerk to put together a resolution for our consideration where we ask the province to up the limit to a more reasonable amount. Yeah. You've been involved in what kind of activities, Councillor?
Well, I'm not going to say it publicly.
Don't elaborate.
Are you asking me to publicly state that?
No,
That's more
you're
than
right.
one
So many, you're right, Councillor, as serving as in your involvement in the United Way, et cetera. Many groups,
Service clubs, we get
service
this all
clubs,
the time.
they have this. So if it's amenable to colleagues around the table, if we can ask the clerk to bring forward a resolution that we can forward to the province asking them to increase the limit. And maybe there's other issues that we want to look at in that, if there's others that don't make sense. Are we okay with that? Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey, on that issue or a different issue?
A different issue,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Mayor.
sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I had a question regarding 2014 municipal election. We constantly hear the term lame duck council. I wonder if you could explain, Madam Clerk, what a lame duck council is and what are the parameters of that and what are the limitations of that particular council should we find ourselves in that particular circumstance?
Mr. Mayor, there will be a formal report coming to council closer to nomination day or early in the year that specifically addresses the lame duck council. There are certain restrictions placed on a council when it can be determined beyond a doubt that 3/4 of the council has the potential to change. So there are a number of factors that would weigh on when a council becomes, finds itself in a lame duck position. So it could be anywhere between nomination day, after nomination day, and the election day, or it could fall as late as election day, between election day and the new term of council. There will be a formal report coming as part of our election process. So that will come to you early in the year to explain all of that.
Thank you, Madam.
There are restrictions on what a council can decide on, depending on what is in the approved budget for the election year. And so expenditures, sale of property, expenditures beyond 50,000 if it's not in the budget, but I will explain all of that to you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. And I think maybe you can also copy, there was a recent article in Municipal World, I think it was last month, about the issue of a lame duck council, and it might be interesting to also have that in the report as well, so you can consider
Actually,
that.
it may be helpful if I present that report sooner rather than later, because it may have budget implications. So I'll prepare that report for next council.
Okay,
That'd be great.
all right. Thank you for asking the question. Thank you for that. We look forward to it. Any others? Councillor Pat?
Quick one through you to Madam Clerk. I'm just curious, the business directory inquiries, we had 55, we're down to 18. It's just the lack, nobody's calling, nobody's asking, and nobody's updating. I'm just trying to understand, what does that mean to you? What's happening?
It could mean that there are a lot of businesses that are on the directory right now, so we're not having a lot of requests for
No
new
updates, okay.
businesses to be added.
Some of that will be addressed in the new website, will it not? I don't know who can answer that. It was the intention when it was showed to us that some of the businesses would be on the website or a new directory, or is that sort of phase two?
Yes,
Ms. McKnight?
no, through you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. The new website will have a new and upgraded business directory with some new additional features, and there will be an opportunity for businesses to actually sign up to do their changes as they happen themselves. We would just approve them and verify them on their behalf, but they would be able to do them, so we would be a lot more efficient in that regard. And we could do a whole campaign as we launch the website. That'll definitely be one of the main benefits, to draw people to our website, but also for businesses to sign up.
Perfect.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
update, Ms. McKnight. Thank you, Counselor. Others? There being none, I call the question on the clerk's report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item is the CAO's report. We have an acting CAO we can put in the hot seat for this, for any questions. It's moved by Councillor Papp, second by Councillor Durley, that the Committee of the Whole receive the October 2013 Chief Administrative Officer's report for information. Questions on any of the items? And this does include the status report regarding the business case. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, it was attached.
So it is attached, so if there's any questions, the leisure plan. Okay, so let's say first to the report itself. Are there any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, now to the leisure plan, the analysis. Doesn't tell you much. I guess the overall question, there's a number of items here that are complete, which is good. Some of them are still in process. Do we have a timeline for completion? I don't know that it's outlined here. Target date next week? Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, we met with one of the consultants last week and just asked that they provide the status update for council. They're very close to completion. They have a few surveys left going through the Director of Rec and Wellness Department, and upon completion of that, they'll be able to put the information together and what their findings were.
So it is anticipated that it will come to our November 18th council meeting, do you know?
We are hoping to bring it as soon as possible. We are, working with them to get it completed and then wrap up their final. They've got most of the report and the findings there. They're just waiting on these final surveys at this time. And then we're hoping to be able to turn it around that quickly.
Okay, thank you. Others? Anyone else on that? So we look forward to that coming to us and get those surveys back. Anything else on the CEO's report? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Appreciate that. It has been moved by, are we ready to go here? It's been moved by Councillor King, second by Councillor Durley. This regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular committee scheduled for Monday, November 18th, 2013, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Let's take 5 minutes before we